Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. We come to you from a different location. This is our studios in Colombo. We are not live, but we are recorded. We'll be coming to you up until Wednesday, 10 p.m. until 11:30 p.m. Until the D-Day for elections, the results and all that and more is over. We'll be coming to you from these studios. Joining us tonight on the show are three guests. We are expecting Azad Saleh, leader of the National Unity Alliance, who is supporting New Democratic Front candidate Sajid Premadasa, who is contesting under the symbol of the Swan. We're also joined by Malinda Seniratna, senior journalist. Also, we have with us in the studio tonight Krishmal Varana Surya, counsel for General Mahesh Siranayaka, who is contesting under the symbol of the light bulb at the upcoming presidential elections. So let's start off with Malinda Seniratna, senior journalist. Malinda, a few months ago when you joined our show, you said you will also be a candidate for the presidential election. However, now we have the 35 names, 5 more days to go, and you backed out.
Well,
Chickened out, can I say so?
My answer to the question put to me was, the question should be why others are not contesting. I put my name up as a whim. Others may have followed me or they had done it on their own volition, but I should not take the blame for 35
But
candidates.
when you say that you chickened out just prior to the elections, what is your response to this?
People can call me any name they want. I'm fine with that.
5 more days to go. What must be the issues that the two main candidates, along with the other candidates like General Mahesh Siranayaka, Mrs. Ajanta Pereira, so on and so forth? We have a lot of people who are contesting this time around. What should be the focus really?
For the candidates themselves, well, the candidates will of course focus on what they believe would take them over the line. And that may or may not be on issues. I think the issues have been debated, they have come out in the manifestos and things like that, but as far as voters are concerned, maybe one positive thing, regardless of the outcome, regardless of whoever wins, is that we will probably have a stable government with the party of the winning candidate very likely to win the majority of seats in the general election that will follow. Which I think, given that our economy is in the state that it is in, some kind of political stability would be a positive thing to looking to the future. If you are talking about the issues, of course, there's a national security issue. There are the issues of the economy after the Easter Sunday attack. And not only because of the Easter Sunday attack, but maybe economic mismanagement and various other things. And so those are issues that all the candidates, I think, have addressed. I don't think that anything new can be brought to the table in terms of the main concerns that were there at the beginning of this whole process. Like security was an issue. Poverty, people's incomes, real incomes falling, businesses going bankrupt, the business community being very upset, investment drying up, and so on. So those things, I think, will stay for the next 5 days also. They will be mentioned to lesser or greater degree.
Malinda, very quickly before I move to Krishma, you mentioned that there is going to be some sort of stability following the presidential election this time around, and then come the general election. However, next year is going to be a very problematic year for Sri Lanka, as the debt repayment is going to be at an all-time high next year. That is the 2020 year. Yeah. How do you think that the candidates would fare?
That's up to them. I mean, you get, it depends on how they perform. I can't speak for themselves. I mean, we have a, we may have...
Given the fact that right now, it seems that all these candidates have a magic wand in their hands. So much of promises, so much of pledges ahead of the elections.
Where's the money?
Where's the money?
Right, but what I meant was this. Now we had 5 years of the Yapalna arrangement, which obviously, I think, as far as I'm concerned, it is a massive failure with Maithripala Sirisena, leader of the SLFP, Ranil Wickremesinghe, leader of the UNP, these two parties which are historically been at each other's throats. They had a very difficult arrangement to live with and work with, and we saw on many occasions that was a problem. The kind of coherence that is non-negotiable kind of prerequisite for any kind of program in dealing with the issues that you mentioned, debt repayment and so on. If you have coherence, then you have some chance. If you don't, it could be much worse. So I'm saying that's a positive. I'm not saying that's going to sort everything out, but it's something that I think we could look forward to.
Thank you very much, Malin Senratha, senior journalist. We, of course, will put Malin more on the spotlight as the show goes on. Joining us again tonight is Mr. Krishmal Varasurya, Counsel for General Maheswara, contesting under the symbol of the light bulb. Krishmal, interestingly, you join us again in a span of 2 months on the show once again. It's nice to talk to you. Why? Because right now we are in a very critical juncture as far as Sri Lankan politics is concerned. We're talking about the two main candidates. To be very fair, we speak about Sajith Premadasa, we speak about Gotabaya Rajapaksa, we speak about Anukumar Dissanayake.
You speak, we don't.
Unfortunately, the name of General Maheswaranayake is not in the limelight as we saw in the last couple of months. 3 months ago, General Maheswaranayake's name was very prominent. 2 months ago, his name was the name that people spoke about as far as the political fora is concerned. But right now, his name is slowly fading away from the political fora. Why is this?
Yes, thank you, Shamir. As you said, I must thank you for inviting us again to represent General Senanayake's candidacy. And we must thank you for this airtime, which we think is very important. And I must compliment your station for being leagues ahead than some other stations who appear to think, like you just said, that there are only two candidates running this election. Frankly, that is the very problem. People see the people's perception of what you just said appears to revolve on what is shown by media, because obviously everyone can't be in Polonnaruwa Trincomalee at these so-called rallies that they fill people with busloads coming from Kurunegala to Trincomalee for a meeting. We remember some recent election, there was a man in Kegol shouting, "Mokakdo one, apita boat tu one." So he has come from Hambantota to Kegol for the meeting. So this sort of electioneering tends to give the impression of what you just said, Shamir, that there is a loss of a campaign or whatever. If that were so, I'm actually inviting your erudite viewer, who I know watches Face the Nation and follow us and speak to us when they meet us, to ask yourself the question whether that electioneering is what you want to go forward, whether you are going to evaluate your candidates by the number of heads that they bump up and show to you on a TV screen in the night, or are you going to be a silent revolutionary, if you like, and be a wise make a wise choice at this election. Now, answering Shamir's question also, this brings to mind another thing, Shamir. You see, for us, our research doesn't show any diminishing of Mahesh's candidacy. In fact, I'm encouraged that in some places, some of the research that we are showing keeps us almost near the second, if not the third place, surpassing several others. And everyone we meet, as I said, the silent voter who makes wise judgments are speaking to us. We are encouraged with that. Also, this other argument of the very statement that you made, Shamir, I don't attribute it to you. Lots of media seem to be saying this: the two top candidates, and then the third candidate. So in that case, we don't need to have 35 candidates at the election. We can just have two. Tell the people, no, we are only going to give you two candidates. You all select between 1 and 2 and make them president. I don't buy that at all, because I sincerely believe that what I thought was going to happen in this election will be also reminiscent of when the voter speaks on the 16th. I believe that I will hear some good signs that the Sri Lankan voter has actually started thinking. Why do I say that? Bertolt Brecht once says, it's time to elect a new people. Now I am asking you, are you responding to, more than my response to Shamir's question, what you respond is what matters. You have been asking us for several years now for an alternative. Everywhere we meet, everywhere we go, you've been saying, can't we stop this cancerous system, these dirty politics? These fellows are only concerned of themselves. Can't we bring some good people forward? Well, here's your opportunity. You tell us that you want to change the system, not at the parties and cocktails that you meet us. But now, with your vote, when you go to cast it on the 16th, you give us the confidence that you all have not toiled in vain. what we all have been doing for all these years, we are with you. That will give us the encouragement to move forward and usher in the change that you want to see. They say, no, you must live the change you want to see. So if you want to see that change, rather than limiting yourself to rhetoric at parties, just try, Sri Lankans are good at this, no? You need conversations. This is dirt, that fellow had done this, yes, back millions, no? And then you go and cast a vote for the same Johnnies who you say are corrupt. Now is the time for you to change it. If you want to be the change that you want to see, at least for your children's future, cast a vote with us. Give us the encouragement that we are not toiling in vain, that you really want to change the country.
Thank you very much. Krishna Varasuriya, Counsel for General Maheshwara Nayak, contesting under the symbol of the light bulb. Also joining me tonight as journalist, onto my immediate right is John Fernando, and onto my far right is Deshan Gonawala. Let's start off with John.
Yes, definitely, Shamir. I will step in. I'll direct this question specifically to Malinda as independent journalist, and Krishmal, you can always step in with your opinion, which we highly encourage. As we know, we are days behind a presidential election. We have to accept we have two major political factions, and we have a strong alternative this time, and a long list of other candidates. In the upcoming days, what can the people exactly expect? Well, we can say it's democracy, a large number of candidates running for presidency, but we are nearing the finishing line of this whole race. Malinda, what can the people expect after the presidential election? What can we expect?
The next few days from the two major camps, major with the inverted commas, of course, we will expect a lot of mudslinging.
Okay.
Mudslinging. And some may do it intelligently, some may not. Some will fall flat on their faces. And I think the other candidates, we have not mentioned Anurakumar Disanayake, Dr. Ajanta, then General Mahesh, of course, and many other candidates, including, I think, interviewing on Pathika, the candidate from the Socialist Equality Party. They will do their thing. They will talk they'll talk about the issues. None of those candidates are engaged in this bickering politics that we see from the two major camps, parties. After the election, we will have a new president. Depending on who the president is, we will see what kind of, it is clear that it will be either Gotabaya Rajapaksa or Sajith Premadasa as the president. And given our political culture and that history of how our politicians behave, you will see a lot of people jumping ship. They will quickly shift their loyalties, which is pretty common. Which is the kind of thing that I think candidates such as General Maheshwara Nayak and others are saying is wrong, and we should move out of that, try to find a different way. But what we can expect in the immediate aftermath is that, if you're asking me how the economy will be, I think that more or less both these candidates, when you talk about the economic policy, there's not much to get outside of the promises, of course. Promises are, dime a dozen. And where the money comes from is a question that the people who promise don't really answer. But they are fairly committed to a very neoliberal kind of economic program.
Malit, I'll stop you right there. So now you spoke about promises, right? Now we have seen from the major political candidates, presidential candidates, to, the other 30-odd candidates, they come on stage and they make a number of promises. These number of jobs will be given, certain taxes will be reduced. If we are speaking on behalf of the youth or on behalf of the people of this country, what sort of confidence can we actually place in those promises? Are these promises backed by research? Are these promises backed by actual figures and numbers? Or are these just blatant statements to attract the masses?
To the main, in the main, it's about just blatant, easy statements to make. As I said, promises are dime a dozen. But we live in a country where we don't have an occupation classification. So how can we even tailor the education system to cater to the human resource needs, by 2025, 2030, and so on, given some kind of understanding about how the economy will change, how the world will change, technology, IT, and so on. So when you say I will give jobs, what kind of jobs? And the jobs that we need to have, do we have the skills for people to do those jobs? If you take the IT industry, if you need 400,000 IT graduates by 2022, if you don't have an education system that can churn out that kind of skilled people, then we are not going to be able to give jobs. We'll be giving handouts.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
May I chip in with an answer to this promise mental? I want to get them. You see, I think that's a valid question that your viewers and as indeed the country must consider this time. You see, one person promises free fertilizer, because he's realized that almost about 60-62% are dependent on an agro-based economy in our country. Another one has realized that 52% of the voters are women, so he's promising free sanitary napkins, right? Now for me, this is still, we are still offering a fish and not the fishing rod. We are still telling you, you remain poor, okay? You remain poor. I'll come to your doorstep with your sanitary napkin. I'll come and give you some fertilizer, but you remain poor. We have not given them the fishing rod and told them there is a stream. Go catch your fish now, make an economy for yourself so that you can afford your own fertilizer and you can, I was going to say nothing here, I won't. Lucky I stopped myself. You can buy your own sanitary napkin, right? Because, you see, our political culture, the so-called big fish that you speak of, I don't consider them big fish, but the big fish that the country thinks are big fish are dependent upon that subservient nature of our poverty to survive. It's such a vicious cycle that our politicians do not want to change. They would rather give you Samurdhiya, Gamperaliya, Divinaguma, Maganaguma, Janasaviya, whatever savias, as long as you need to come back to me to get it. You follow? But if you give them a satisfactory economic right, the ability to purchase, the ability to live like developed countries that we have seen, then they don't need to be subservient to you and come in their hordes of thousands before their rallies and wave at them when they come for meeting. See, that is why I know you try to wave, and when the man is going by, you try to put a smile. Yeah, hi, go on, sir. Just to show it, I came. If you can't get near that man, you try to show your face to at least the organizer of the area. Say, Samang, you please tell him that I came. Why? Because you want to get a job for your son or daughter. You want to get them some school for you. But we have not strengthened institutions which we are advocating. We say, look at the team around us, look at the team around Mahesh, and you compare the teams around the other so-called candidates. Are you having the same wine in a new bottle? Look at the professionals, the intellectuals, not just them, the grassroots. Look at the grassroots that have got around General Senayaka's campaign from to the very grassroots, from the farmers, the teachers, the common man that have got behind our campaign, who are silent voters. They won't flock at rallies because we don't have the money to actually bring them and give them money and hold them at rallies. But they will cast a vote. And I'm hoping that this time, even our elite who watch this in English, unfortunately this message must go in Sinhalese also, and Tamil also, but we are speaking English now to you. At least you will pass on the message to those who you meet and say, this time let's make our voice heard so that our country's politicians, so-called professional politicians, the one who lives on politics for their livelihood, don't need to exploit poverty of our people to continue in politics.
Krishmal, now, one of the allegations or one of the points that a lot of people have told to the media right now is the fact that General Mahesh Senayaka is not serious about his candidacy to run for the presidency, but he wants to contest the general election. And that is why a lot of people are rallying around him because they want to be a very good force at the upcoming general election. How do you counter this argument that is brought forward by many quarters?
Yeah, I've known General Senayaka for just under about a month and a half now, since I began supporting his campaign as his legal advisor. I assume that I speak for him when I say, in all the seriousness with which he was army commander in this country, he is that serious about his presidential candidature. There is no nonsense there. I have discussed this matter with him. But I will tell you, Shamir, he himself disclosed at his first meeting at Sugatadasa, thereafter when we presented our policy document, that this is just a beginning of an end of a vicious political era. We are committed to going forward, not just with presidential election. whatever happens at this election, if we are encouraged enough, if you encourage us enough to say that we need a change in the country, then we will go to the next general, we will go to the provincial elections, any election that comes, we will form a formidable force and give you an educated response to our country's problems, not these promises, as this young man just said, that are dished off the stage at every 30 seconds. But Samir, yes, we are very keen on building that formidable first force to go into an alternate political force in this country. I wouldn't even call it a third force, because remember how Macron started in France. Remember how the Lib Dem started in UK. They started with 2-3 seats. Macron only came as a presidential candidate, but thereafter, immediately thereafter, the general election he went to, he had a massive first-time set of people in parliament.
But do you think that that change can be envisaged in a country like Sri Lanka?
I would believe so. If I didn't, Shamir, I'm sincere, I told this to you on previous program. This is frankly, Marinda, my last attempt. I've now been trying, I'm 47 years old, 48 now.
Young man.
Relatively, although my hair is grey, perhaps because of professional problems. But I am telling you, when we returned with a young child from England after education, we returned to a country in war, the height of war. From the time that we went on the roads, took on the police barrels, the gas canisters, and the struggles that we did was to make a better country. If I didn't believe that my contribution was needed here, Shamir, I wouldn't be wasting my time.
Krishmal,
but can I just finish?
Yeah.
This is my last attempt. If the people don't respond in the manner that I think that they will, and tell us that you want this change, then I'm also going to throw in the towel and concentrate on my practice. I don't think I need to try to change the country anymore.
But a similar attempt was made by many quarters in society in 2015 as well.
I didn't.
As well, Krishmal.
Yeah.
Probably you did not, but many did.
Yeah.
They said there will be good governance, there will be good governance, there will be a change of the political system in Sri Lanka. We expected a lot of changes.
Yeah.
How it did not happen?
No, but I disagree with you on that. 2015, we advocated some change.
Yeah.
I can't say, Shamir, that we did not. Of course, I don't give any credit to a government, but the civil society activists that struggled, I believe I was part of it on stages long before the 2015 change to courts. 2010, remember when we appeared for General Fonseca at the court martials, we had motorcyclists without numbers following us home. So that was a period that we went through to come here. I don't think that the last 10 years, Shamir, yes, people may think that change cannot be seen, it's not visible. But I believe there have been some freedoms that activists like us through our activity have got for the country, such as even freedom to speak freely, freedom to sleep at night freely. Now those things, although some governments appear to take credit for it, please don't give any credit to any governments. There were people, ordinary people like you and me in this country who made that change. So I don't see a negative picture at all, Shamir. I think change has been achieved little, but there is a long way more to go, and I encourage you to come and walk that.
No, but your name was also put as a nationalist MP of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna.
Yep.
So you did try once, Krishmal.
Yeah. Well, I believe that I won also. 1 and 2 seats won by Mayadunne and me. It's unfortunate that we didn't end up in parliament. Not for me. Had I ended up in parliament, I would have been trying a bit more. But then the people decided that 2 nationalist seats to be given, but the party decided otherwise. So that's up to them.
But how sure are you that something of that sort will not happen again?
I can't. You know, politics. You can't. Politics, Shamir. You don't. You have very strange bedfellows. No. Politics, you must understand the game of politics. We have studied this from university days. It's a science. You see, it's about accumulation of power. The basic fundamental of politics is that it's the accumulation of power, state power, ideally, or any political power. So to do that, people do the most funniest things. Unfortunately, people like us who at least know the science also need to play with this, knowing that there is a risk. Knowing that there is a risk in what you're putting your head into, you take that chance for the betterment of the public, the betterment of the country. We think that we can make it a bit better. But of course we are disappointed. Sometimes we are disgusted at the way we are treated. But you just bet on. But frankly for me, I haven't enough of betting on after this. After 2020, I think Krishmal is going to concentrate on my practice because my wife is telling me, now stay at home.
Mr. Senela, I want to pose this question to you now. Working in an environment with the news, especially, you've had the opportunity to actually go through a lot of the policy directions that these various parties have kind of progressed over the last few years. Now, moving forward, Sri Lanka has a number of issues. Sri Lanka has a debt issue. We also have issues pertaining to forex. We have issues pertaining to freedoms. Even our democracy isn't at a level where we should be, and we can improve thereon. In the next 5 years, after next Saturday, what is the first issue that Sri Lanka should focus on? Because some people say that we need to get our economy right if we are to get everything else right. What, in your opinion, is the number
I think that we need to get the systems right. I think I agree with Krishmal on some of the things that he alluded to. I mean, it's not just juggling equations. If you don't have the institutional arrangement, if the processes that are in place are flawed, then whatever theories you may have, you are not going to get the outcome that you desire. So maybe we have not concentrated on fixing. We used a lot of like Yahapalne, good governance and all. That was all rhetoric, right? We didn't have any of that, and there were various things which you can't really blame the government on. Partly, yes, their commitment and their inability was very apparent, but sometimes the resistance comes from the system itself, because if it is flawed and there are people in it who are benefiting from it, they will resist. So, which is why sometimes some people say we need a really strong leader. He might be able to bulldoze. I don't think it really works like that. But a commitment to fix the institutional arrangement and constitutional amendment is, I think, only one aspect of it. That will give us, that's the fundamentals. We need to get our fundamentals right so that whatever policies can be implemented in a transparent, accountable manner, and with some science. It's not like emotional ad hoc stuff that people do.
But Malinda, we've heard this word science over and over again, because in 2015, when the government said they want to appoint a cabinet, it will be done in a very scientific manner.
No, but I'm not using that, obviously.
Yeah,
right? I mean, if we go like that.
You can't sound like a politician today.
We
Malinda.
can't use any word, because all the words, the entire vocabulary has been
used.
bastardized. Abused. In that case, we should shut up. But you understand what I'm saying, right? Now, if the question posed to me was, how should we proceed after the 16th of November? How we ought to. I'm not going to be the president. Krishma is not going to be the president. Maybe Mahesh will be the president, and maybe Krishma can tell him. That's a different, yeah, right. But I'm not a soothsayer or anything like that. I'm not in the business of predicting. But if you want me to play the role of the Purohita Bamuna, right? I will say, fix the system, boss. Fix the system. I'll tell him every 5 minutes, fix the system. Because we need to have those arrangements right.
Malinda, let's talk about fixing the system. Let's talk about A, B and C first. Okay, you're saying let's fix the system. How do we start? Where do we start?
Okay, constitution. Right, basic things like separation of powers, which I think Krishma can talk to much better than me. You all have studied these things. I studied other stuff, right?
So, but let's say, hypothetically, let's say, Gotabaya Rajapaksa is elected as the president of the country on the 16th of November. Hypothetically, let's say, he won't even command the majority in parliament. Yeah, and you say that the most important thing that has to be fixed right now is to bring in a new constitution.
Right.
How sure are you that he won't command a majority in parliament after he's elected?
No, what he's saying is immediately.
If he is elected.
No, but the assumption is that if he's elected.
Right, but okay.
They'll cross over.
No, yeah. There are many ways that he can get a majority in parliament, including that. Yeah. But let's say he doesn't have a majority until February.
Yeah.
That is how many months from now? Immediately after the presidential election, everyone will be campaigning for the. So it's a matter of 3 months. The country is not going to.
3 months is a long time. Martin.
It's also not a huge. I mean, it's not a huge amount of time. Also,
compared to what we've lost.
When did Sajid Premdas become candidate? When did Ranil Wickremesinghe not become a candidate? Just 2 months ago. Things can. I mean, 3 months is a long time, depending on how you want to see it. But there will be a period where, I mean, it is not like how it was in 2015, or it's not going to be like when it was in 1994, when Chandrika Kumar got a majority in parliament, but not the president, for a short period of time. So there are a lot of things can happen, but we should not speculate.
But do you think that voter the average voter has learnt a lesson since the 2015 presidential elections. Do you think they have?
Well, let's see. You know, I can't speak for the average voter, but I feel that this is a trend. We saw it in 2010. Mahinda Rajapaksa won a convincing victory over Sarath Fonseca. 3 months later, we had a parliamentary election. He won in 2010 April. He won handsomely, and immediately afterwards, so many people crossed over, and he even got the 2/3 majority, right? So there are certain checks and balances on that. But a working majority, I think, is probably even if it is Sajith Premadasa who wins, I think.
But do you think any of these candidates?
On this earlier question.
I'll give you a minute. Do you think any of the candidates, may it be General Maheshwara Nayaka, may it be Andrew Kumar Disanayake, may it be Sajith Premadasa, or even Gotabaya Rajapaksa, do you think at this election either one of them would be able to garner 50% of the votes, or how important is the second and third preference going to be?
Historically, the second preference, at best, I can't remember the exact year, was 2%. I mean, around that area. Average is less than 1%. This year there is actually talk of the second preference, but let's see how it plays out. I don't know. But I mean, if are we going to get in the game of predicting the winner? Because if that is the case, then
no, we are not. But we have to.
But I think that I feel that we are not going to need a second preference. I'm not going to say beyond that, but I don't think that the second preference thing is going to become a factor.
Because this time we see, Krishmal, I want to get back to a question, and then you can probably respond to the earlier question about change the constitution. Second preference at the upcoming elections, how important is it going to be? Because we have people like Maheshwara Nayaka, who is making an impact in the political fore at present. We have individuals like Dr. Ajanta, who is also commanding some sort of respect from the women voters in Sri Lanka. Then we have Andrew Kumar Disanayake, who probably will come as the third or the fourth force in the political fora. And then we have Rohan Pallavatta, who's also contesting an election this time around, who has a vision to make Sri Lanka an enterprising society. And then we have the two main candidates. So how important is the second preference going to be at this election, in your opinion, Krishmal? And then let's talk about the constitution.
It is on the constitution. I want to contribute on this parliamentary question that you posed to Malinda, because that's important. Lots of people are finding this difficult to understand how once a president is elected, how is he going to run for the 3 months. So if you give me a bit of time, I'd like to address that and come to the preference through that. I can connect the two.
Yes, of course.
The question that you posed to Malinda was, well, okay, assuming you mentioned the candidate, I will say assuming my candidate wins, because I assume, I cannot assume, I assume that General Senaka will be victorious, will keep a hypothesis. Once he wins, he becomes president. Under our constitution, he garners an executive power directly from the people. And that executive power permits him to do several things, Samir. Under our constitution, it is the president that forms a government. We must distinguish a Westminster-style parliament where after an election, a prime minister forms a government. That is not how in our country it happens. It's a president's government. We give executive power to a president, Article 4B of the Constitution, and it is he that summons his cabinet. In a parliamentary year of 5 or 6, there have been several instances where new governments have been formed within a parliamentary term. It is not necessarily one election, one parliament. Within a parliamentary term of 5 or 6 years, governments have changed. So governments are formed by the constitution of a cabinet. And that happens at the instance of the president and no one else. After the 19th Amendment, all that it has changed is that the president must ask the prime minister which phases to put in to the cabinet. Still under Article 42, 43, 44, if you read all those provisions, it's a president that forms a cabinet. It's a president that decides the number of ministers. It's a president that decides what subjects go to that number of ministers. Then, once he makes that decision, it's completely president's prerogative, no one else's. Once he does that, then he invites the prime minister to give advice on who, and he also appoints the prime minister. He also, once a cabinet dismisses, once a cabinet goes out, the present prime minister goes out to the present cabinet. Remember, this question was never traversed in the Supreme Court. What the Supreme Court held last year was the dissolution of parliament. This question, when the cabinet was sacked, went to the Court of Appeal. They took an appeal from there. So Court of Appeal decisions are not binding on the Supreme Court, as you know. They took an appeal to the Supreme Court on the dissolution of the cabinet. That matter was settled. So there is no decision. of our constitutional interpretation after the 19th Amendment yet on the formation and dissolution of a cabinet. So that's still a matter to be tested in law. My reading of the law at present is that the president forms a cabinet, right? And once the present cabinet goes off and a new government comes in, the prime minister and existing ministers go out with that. That's very clear. So that's how, and once the president is in power, Shamir, we know in our parliament, just look at one example, 4.5 years, our MPs won't have a pension. They must go for 5 years to have a pension. How many first timers are there in this parliament? What if the elected president were to say, okay, I'm going to run the full 5-year term, how many of you are going to come and form a government with me? You think a president won't be able to form a government? Very easily he'll form a government. So there are still things that can be done within the constitution for the benefit of the country if we want to run.
But then, Krishna,
now can I hit your preference?
Yeah, no, I'll get back to that now because you're speaking on the electoral system as far as the appointments are concerned in the cabinet. So who is General Senanayake going to appoint in his cabinet?
Well, that will have to be a decision that he decides once those who are in parliament presently until the next parliament election either endorse his candidates and come and tell him that they're willing to form a government with him. Once they give him that ratification, okay, General, we are coming on board with you, let's form interim government or a caretaker government until the next election, or even a minority government. There are things called minority governments that have run in the world, right? There are several options that we will advise Mahesh at the time. I think it's a bit too premature to tell which MP will be his defense minister now. But can I just visit that preference is also important, Shamir, because of those very people that you said who formed a lot of groups who will obviously muster some sort of proportion of the vote Malinda at this election. So that proportionate, say 500,000, 200,000, 300,000 that goes here and there, are going to deny the top 2 candidates of an absolute majority. And the Presidential Elections Act is very clear, section 56. It's very clear, you have to have an absolute majority, and the next word uses more than 1/2 to be declared president. If you don't have that, then you go to count in the second and third preferences. And if, once again, it's going to be an interesting question of law, because if the law says you have to have more than 1/2 to become declared elected president, although our dear friend Mako, or popularly known as Mako, one of the commissioners, or the chairman of the Elections Commission has, I believe, gone out and said that even without 50% he will declare someone president. I am sure if that happens, someone is going to run to court and challenge it. Because my reading of the law is, when the whole electorate the entire country is one electorate, and the word is that you must have more than 1/2 to be declared elected president. If less than 1/2 are saying that you are a president, you can't be declared elected because more than 1/2 of the country don't want you as president. That's the argument.
Well, thank you very much.
Of course, in the United States, less than 25% vote.
Yeah. we need to go to a short commercial break. When we come back, we are in conversation with Marlin Saniviratna as well as Krishmal Varanasoria. We're discussing about the upcoming elections and the way forward for Sri Lanka in the next couple of years. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back.
යහපාලනය මෛත්‍රී පාලනයක් ස්ථාවර රටක්
මේ සම්මුතිවාදී ආණ්ඩුව ඉදිරි අවුරුදු 5ක කාලය තුල ශක්තිමත්ව ජාතියට හිතෛෂීව ගුණවත් නැවනවත් දේශපාලන ඥානයෙන් යුතුව මුළු මහත් ජාතියේ යහපත සඳහා ඉදිරි අවුරුදු 5 යනවා වගේම 2020 තීන්දුව කරනවා එතනින් එහාට අපි ආණ්ඩු කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා මම බොහොම පැහැදිලිව තමුන්නාසලට කියන්නට ඕනේ.
වර්ෂ 2020 ජනපති කවුද?
මෙන්න මේක තමයි මේ නියෝජිතව අස්සම් කළා මෙතන තියෙනවා ස්ටාෆ් එක අස්සම් කරන්න ඕනේ නියෝජිතව අස්සම් කරන්න ඕනේ SPO 11 දිනකට අස්සම් කරන්න පුළුවන් ඩෙන්ටිටි කාඩ් විස්තර දාලා අස්සන දාලා පිටපත් 5කින් එකක් බඳේ අලවනවා මුල් පිටපත දෙවනි පිටපත අපි කවර එක දාලා කවුන්ටිං ඔෆිසර්ට එවනවා චෙක් කරලා බලන්න. ඒජන්ට්ලට දෙනවා 3ක්. මේ ඒක නිසා මගදී පෙට්ටිය මාරු කරයි කියන අර බොරු කතාව 1981 යාපනයේ සංවර සභා ඡන්දෙදි උණයි කියන කතාව ඇරෙන්න කිසි කලයක මං 82 ඉඳලා ඡන්ද විශ්ින් වලට සහභාගී වෙලා තිනවා. ඡන්ද පෙට්ටි මාරු කරන්න පුළුවන්ය, ඡන්ද ගාන මැද්දේදී දාන්න පුළුවන්ය කියන එක මිත්‍යාවක් බව කොමිසමේ මැතිවරණ කොමිසම කියයි, සභාපති කියයි කියලා දාන්න එපා. එතකොට ආයෙ මට තනියෙන් බයි.
Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We start off the third round with Krishmal Varasuriya, Counsel for General Mahesara Nayaka, contesting under the symbol of the light bulb. Krishmal, you said it's too premature to say that to appoint the cabinet for General Mahesara Nayaka. However, 2 weeks ago when he came on Face the Nation, he said that his Minister of Defence is going to be Field Marshal Salat Fonseca. So you see...
I was watching that program. You all cornered him into giving him that answer. You all wouldn't let the man be without getting an answer. He kept on saying, no, I will decide then, I will decide later. And you all kept on asking, tell us a name, one name, give us one name.
Yeah.
So being pushed to a corner, I think that was an ill-advised statement, and I have spoken with Mahesh after that. I don't think he ought to have named anyone. That's my personal opinion. Perhaps he has General Fonseca in his mind. He may very well make a very good defense minister. I do not know. But as I say, that must depend on the parliamentary composition at the time and as to who endorses Mahesh's candidature and who comes on board to support him to form a government. What if Field Marshal Fonseca doesn't come on board with Mahesh helping him to form a government? Then he can't appoint him. So, I mean, I think that's just that's one of those occasions where your journalist won. You all cornered the man and kept on pushing him until he gave a name, and which I will now correct for the benefit of your viewer. There is no such decision made in Mahesh's campaign.
I want to get through to Malinda, and then I'll open the floor for questions from Deshan and John. Malinda, looking at the current status of the candidates and their campaigns, who do you think is leading at present?
I think that Gotabaya Rajapaksa is leading. But,
and why?
Because in a major election, especially a presidential election, one of the most decisive factors is campaigning at the grassroots, and in a systematic kind of way. And I think that Gotabaya Rajapaksa has a significant edge over the rest of the field in that respect. Having said that, you know, you can't really, as I said, you know, I'm not an astrologer, and I don't do that kind of stuff. It's the people. We are talking about how many millions of people who are going to cast their vote. I'm just one of them. And I can't speak for everyone. I haven't done any polls. It's just a kind of a sense that I have got from traveling around and from my from the way I see how the campaigns have been conducted, what the people have been saying, what the candidates and their supporters, backers, and, you know, spokespeople have been saying, and my experience over the course of the last 30 years watching these kinds of things. But that does not mean, you know, okay, sue me if he doesn't win. It doesn't happen like that. But, you know, I think that we will know in 5 days' time. You know, that's not going to be a useful question. Let us instead talk about you know, the issues such as, these are serious issues. Now, what happens if someone wins and he doesn't have a majority in parliament, right? But what Krishma said is there are ways around it. Right? What happens if there's a general election and no one gets a working? But there are minority governments. People have crossed over. We know that those kinds of, and the questions that were put by these two young journalists about policies. How do you run the country? What are the things? Those are important things that we need to think about. And sadly, there has been a huge mismatch between policy statements, that means manifestos, and delivery. And Mangala Samaravira famously or infamously once said manifestos just are relevant only until the elections are over. That's a very sad thing, and it's a good thing that there are people out there who don't belong to the mainstream parties who have come forward to say, let's do things in a different way. What they will do when they become president, we can't really say, but at least there are some people who have come forward and saying, let's do it some other way. They are not jumping, onto someone's stage. We are moving away from a different. If you would notice, there's very little election violence. We don't. It's not in your face. The campaigns are not in our faces, and I think that's a good sign. The people who are working on the ground at the grassroots, they are doing it in a very civil kind of decent manner.
Now, I would like to shift our focus once again towards the economical situation here in the country. Despite all the blatant promises given out by presidential candidates, well, to mention about the manifestos, we know, like you said, certain things in manifestos are just there for the written case to be there on the document. Well, the reality is Sri Lanka is already facing an economical crisis. Reality is we have to fix the right before we step onto the right. So this question is specifically directed to you, Krishmal. If you take as a representative of General Mahesh Senanayaka's faction, how will you tackle the economical issue that the country will face in the upcoming 5 years? Will it be through investments? Will it be through, well, obtaining more loans? We have seen a number of international agreements coming up, AXA, SOFA, MCC. How will you exactly tackle this issue in order to fix the right? We'll not talk about going on and developing the country. How can we fix the country and get the country out of the economical crisis that the country is in right now?
Thanks, John. So if any of you can download our policy document from our website, if you go into it, you will see that we have, once again, as Malinda said, using the term scientific, because that word has been misused, but I am going to use it because there is no other word to use. We have scientifically devolved ourselves into 30 ministries, but as Shamir said, when Mahesh came on your program, he said for the interim period, till the next parliament election, we are going to have 20 ministries. And we have devolved subjects in a manner that is consonant with the policy we set out, John. We are going to make policy level decisions that affect areas of the country, including the economy, from a central committee stage approach. We are going to have think tanks, if you like, that handle various problems that we have scientifically sort of devolved into 30 areas, and economy is right up on it. Then, very quickly I go, because we don't have a lot of time to delve in deeply into it. Now, economy, yes, we have to, I move away from these camps that say we are not going to take loans. We can't do that. You see, we must manage our debt. Even our everyday expenses, your viewer will be more comfortable with this than talking of the country's budget. You see, now most people are used to living on credit. We have credit cards. That doesn't mean that all of us burn our credit cards today and settle all the money to a bank and live tomorrow from what we get. That's not how people's lives are molded now. Same thing applies to a country. But you got to manage your debt. Right now what we're doing is, we are borrowing to repay our debt repayments. We are not borrowing for capital expenditure. So we need to come to a system where, number one, a very simple equation, no. The most important thing that parliamentarians do, unfortunately, they may not know it, is Article 148 of the Constitution. They are to make laws for this country. No, we all say that, no, they go to make policy. What's the most important law they make? It's called the Appropriation Bill. Article 148 of this Constitution gives the parliamentarians and no one else in this country the absolute authority over our finance. That is what they're supposed to do. Unlimited wants of the people, limited resources available to us. How do we bridge these two? Now we have a scientific approach on how to do it. We are not going to say we are not going to borrow. We will borrow, but we will increase production, domestic production, reduce unnecessary expenditure in importation, thus bridging our budget deficit to a manageable level over a short to medium to long term way that we've set out in our policy, and thus increase the earning capacity or the living capacity of the citizen. That way we will overcome our economic problems. That's the answer to it.
Mr. Vanasura, that's very easy to say. What's your tax policy?
No, it's not easy. It's very hard to do.
It's very easy to say.
To say,
hard
yes.
to do.
Of course, yes.
What's your tax policy?
My tax policy?
What is the tax policy Mr. General Mahesh Senanayaka is to put forward?
If you ask me a specific on taxation, I'll be able to answer it.
What is his viewpoint? Is he going to look at increasing direct taxes, increasing indirect taxes?
No, we have not gone into specifics of direct or indirect taxes in this document.
Right.
What we have said is that we are going to discourage importation of produce that we can locally produce. We are looking at perhaps tax incentives would be one way of discouraging importation, which are at prohibitive costs, like the sanitary napkins that someone wants to give free. We can possibly produce sanitary napkins in Sri Lanka at a cost that our common farmer's daughter can afford it.
Right.
Now that is one. So that's one tax incentive. Tax incentives work two ways, as you know, Deshan. Right. One is that you increase taxation for generation of income through taxation. The other way is that through taxation and levies imposed upon unnecessary importation, you encourage local growth. So that is going to be a policy.
There's an issue there because of the WTO rules, but let's hope that we can overcome those kinds of things. But I think that one of the things that most governments have failed to acknowledge is the immense strength that we have in our people. Our people are very resilient.
Social capital.
And they can innovate. They know it is the growth that we have had. Whenever we had a good year, it was not because the policies were right. It is because there were some people who took the initiative to do things that could be done. And if you set the rules right, where the regulatory regime is fair or at least clear, what we have seen over the last 5 years, absolute lack of clarity in these things. If you have clear, definite set of rules and regulations, then we know, people will know how to operate. Sometimes they might not like the rules, but at least they'll be confident that this rule is not going to be changed tomorrow, right? So if a government, whoever it is, trusts the people instead of letting the IMF and the World Bank and USAID and whoever the lady is who's representing the MCC design policy for us, then we may have an outside chance. I'm still saying that this is not a level playing field. The earth is not flat. Some people have money, some people have guns, some people don't. We don't. So there's only we don't have a lot of room for kind of play. But within the scope that is available, we can do much more than governments have in the past. And maybe our next leader would be, take things in that direction.
Mr. Anand, that's a very interesting point you brought about the direction of the country. But I want to take it a bit further away. Now, you have 4 or 5 days till a presidential election coming forward.
5 days to be very precise.
5 days. And what you saw over the last few weeks, particularly with the MCC agreement, was a lot of parties coming and expressing a lot of ideas. There is no clarity. Sometimes there is a great amount of sugarcoating what it is. Sometimes there is an absolute blowing out of proportion of what it is. On the other side, you have press conferences being held with men having taped on beards, coming and making allegations. Is this what our politics has fallen to?
That's what our politics has been for a long time. But if you take the MCC or any other agreement, in a mature democracy, there should be debate. And in fact, the MCC document, in its preamble, it says that this, while the particular country has to come up with the document, it has to be widely discussed in the private and public spheres. Now, we don't know who has seen this document, and civil society. I mean, you can get civil society people for $10. I'm just kidding. But and they call themselves.
Not all.
Some. Right? So then you say civil society, and you ask two businessmen from PETA. Oh, we showed it to the businessman. If the MCC wants to push this, I don't know why. They're giving us free money and they say, please take it, take it.
Malinda,
let me finish. So, for such a person, you say, I talked to him, we talked, he'll be fine with that. MCC will be fine with that. But where is the public debate, which is, I think, a prerequisite before we go into any of these things. And let's hope that the next government, the next president, and whoever will take, I think that almost all the candidates have said that we are going to reconsider all these things, review all these things.
Correct.
And that's a good thing. It doesn't matter whether it is Sajid Premadasa, Mahesh Senanayake, Andhra Kumar Senanayake, Ajanta or Gota. right? If they are serious about it. Only problem is, can we hold these people to their word? You know, we have had a culture of promises being made and being broken. So I'm not very optimistic.
Since 2005, the abolishing of the executive presidency has been discussed since 1992 elections.
1982.
1982 elections, and then it has never happened over the years. So you can't hold the people responsible for
the whole politicians
responsible for the manifestos, unfortunately.
But then things also change. You know, things also change in this country. There have been, I mean, it's not like we've gone down the tubes. We fought a war and finished it to the end. And people said, war cannot be won, Prabhakaran cannot be defeated, LTT will remain for the rest of our lives. All kinds of things were said, but things also change. It's like saying...
Permission, may I just contribute something to the MCC thing? Are you sure that this MCC thing was actually going to be signed and that is why all this hullabaloo was made? Or was that another media gimmick or spin doctoring for us to forget the other deals that were happening in one or two political camps? Because I look at politics from the science. You see, when they put the carrot before us, so that they don't want us to talk about things that are actually we should be talking about. The MCC thing, now you see, everyone talked normally, we all talk, media went to town with it. Suddenly they came out, okay, we are not going to sign it till, and that's it. Then this other thing that you said with the tape beards, why, I'm asking your station and other stations, why do you all tolerate these sort of media conferences?
But
don't play them.
He was the cabinet spokesperson.
No, but he didn't come as cabinet spokesperson. No. He came with two fellows who said they went in a white van and saw crocodiles. So
but you're attacking my tribe. Whatever it is, certain questions were asked and the minister was put on the spot. So we should congratulate those journalists who were there.
Certainly,
yeah.
Don't play them this nonsense.
Yeah, but even this MCC, like now we are into the territory of conspiracy, so that is not very useful, right? I mean, we can speculate till the cows come home or whatever. But as you said, promises are made and broken and forgotten, and sometimes we also forget them as the people, and we forget them at the next election also. We don't say you didn't do this. What happened to the 100 days program? You were a minister there, weren't you? Right? What happened to the bond case? You were a minister there, we don't ask those questions. Maybe we are very nice people, nice voters, fine. Maybe we know most of it is nonsense, right? But maybe we have a matrix of factors where we consider, okay, these, no, we don't believe this nonsense. He may or may not do, but that's also fine. But this is important to me. And he's saying this. He is not. And therefore I will vote for him. Because this is a complex. And we are also complex as individuals, as voters. It's not that we don't know. My theory is people know that most people are just talking through their hat, right? They're not wearing them, right? But you will vote for one thing, which is what makes it possible for a candidate who wins to say, now I promised these 5, you're voting for this, right? Then I also said this, this and that, which I'm not really interested in. But you can say, well, this is what I said, right? And this is the mandate that you have given me, when the majority of the people may not have been considered that as an important thing. I thought they must just thrown it in, like the MCC in the middle of all these things. So, I mean, that's how politics is, and it's not a Sri Lankan specific thing. That is how it is globally, right? So, but let us not be pessimistic. I am very happy that Mahesha Nayak is contesting. I am very happy that Dr. Ajanta is contesting. I have less, happiness about the political parties that have been in existence for so many years. But even the frontline Socialist Party, they have put forward a candidate, the Socialist Equality Party. No, they represent a certain worldview, a certain understanding of how the world operates, and how they believe the system should be changed so that it benefits the people.
The debate is important.
Yeah. So and I think that your station does give them some space more than certain others.
Very good.
So politics is long, and the question that was put to Krishma earlier, what happens after the presidential election, and is Mahesha Nayak doing this, thinking of the politics does not begin when elections are announced and does not end when results are announced, right? It's a long thing. Imran Khan took him 20 odd years to become the Bharatiya Janata Party. Two seats in the first time they contested. Now they can't be moved out, right? So, but it's the hard yards that you have to do, and there are no shortcuts. I'm sure that some of the candidates, at least who are not in the frame, so to speak, according to the way some people set the frames, understand that, and that's a good
I think, man, I tend to agree with you, because I read a recent article on the New York Times, and it was published by some campaigners for Donald Trump, where he has articulated his foreign policy in the year 2016, in the year 1989, on a paper advert in New York Times. So it does take a lot of time. But let's get into bolts and nuts of the Sri Lankan political arena at present, Malinda. You say, let's not be pessimistic about the future. Let's be very optimistic, and this has been one of your one of the points that you've come on the show and highlighted, saying let's be optimistic about the future.
I'm not going to practice after. I don't have a practice. Okay.
But you always say being optimistic is very important. But is there a glimmer of hope for Sri Lankans? Because now they want some change. They wanted an alternative, and you have some alternative forces. But it's very evident that people are not going to go with everyone in the family and vote for the alternative force. It's very clear. Let's talk bolts and nuts.
But why should we, at the same time, let us not take away from the voter.
Absolutely.
Right?
Let's
now, supposing the majority of the voters vote for candidate X, right, wins. Aren't they hopeful? Aren't they happy?
Absolutely.
Right. So maybe that what they hoped for and what some other person hopes for in terms of change, how theoreticians, politicians, political commentators and professionals argue about it, where they may have certain ideas about what is possible and what is not, maybe much better than the political analysts. So they may be
because there was
hopeful.
a time, I'm posing this question to you, Anida, why? Because prior to 2015, there was a self-imposed censorship in Sri Lanka. Very evident. There were a lot of journalists who were killed, many journalists were abducted. Prageet Eknanikode is still is missing. There were a lot of...
You're about to say at large, right? Which could be the case. Right?
Yeah. But many issues did crop up as far as freedom of press and all that is concerned. But post-2015, we saw a major change in Sri Lanka.
I agree. I also think that's one of the positive things that we have seen, apart from the Right to Information Act. Also, let us not forget that the darkest periods were in 88, 89, throughout the 80s, where there was absolute censorship. Journalists, professionals, doctors, priests, everyone was abducted, tortured, killed, burnt alive, Vijay Veera included, right? And I think that, these changes sometimes stick. Right? We don't have the kind of election violence that we saw in the 80s and the 90s now. And that is not because these people are good or the previous regime was better or anything like that. Something has happened.
People have changed.
The people have changed.
People have changed, and politicians, good or bad, they have also contributed to it by setting up certain mechanisms, like the 17th Amendment, right, and the 19th Amendment to a certain extent, which I have my reservations, but to a certain extent. And I don't think that a candidate, like of course Sajith Premadasa says we are going back to my father's era, and that scares me. But then I don't think that Sajith Premadasa, if he becomes president, will be able to do what his father did, bad things. And neither do I think that if Gotabaya Rajapaksa wins, he will be another Mahinda Rajapaksa, or that Mahinda Rajapaksa will be able, as prime minister or whatever, will be able to call the shots as he did between 2005 and 2. Things change, circumstances change, and circumstances alter cases. So we have progressed in certain ways. We are not a perfect democracy. We don't have perfect representation. We are still very colonial in our thinking. We still get look to the West for advice, certain governments at least, about how we should run our country. That is power in and of itself. But I think that, as you said, things changed. Right? And sometimes not because of the government, sometimes in spite of the government. And people are more alert. Maybe technology has also helped. Now, for example, a good example is if you look at the election campaigns of 2015 and now in social media, 2015 was as flooded with fake news, mudslinging as it is now. But people are better able to filter things right now. You will know it from personal experience that you know how to filter this. Oh, this is mud. Oh, this can't be true. Let me check. So these things evolve over time, I think.
Krishna, let's talk about the 19th Amendment of the Constitution. We've seen in the two main camps, one of them at least speak about the 19th Amendment of the Constitution and how important it is to abolish it and move on to a new constitution. General Mahestra Nayaka, what is his plan in terms of a new constitution? Does he have a plan? Does he have a plan to abolish the 19th Amendment of the Constitution, as the Sri Lanka Purjana Peramuna has been saying over the last few weeks, last few months? What is the stand of General Mahestra Nayaka on a new constitution?
There is, Shamir, there are several far-reaching amendments that we've suggested in our policy document. Valid question. Thank you for asking that. However, we also realize that most of it, now for example, we have concentrated more on a cabinet-centric government structure, taking a fair amount of the executive power away from an executive president. We've also devolved decision making in certain areas like health, education, things that matter to certain areas into those areas, whilst keeping in the central government a lot of major decision making powers. Now these constitutional amendments, Shamir, will have to go beyond the 19th Amendment. We will not be able to bring it in by way of amendment because we are now at the Supreme Court decision, which I argued in the 19th Amendment. I myself and several others, their lordships held that we can't touch those executive powers anymore beyond what we argued in the 19th Amendment. Remember, when we went to the Supreme Court, we went with a proposal to make the Prime Minister the head of the cabinet and give executive powers to him. And the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that.
Unless otherwise there's a referendum.
Unless you, two-thirds, and the people say yes, because now you're trying to take away the powers the people have given to an executive president directly through direct franchise, and you can't do that unless the people say so. Similarly, recently we went to the 20th Amendment draft that we argued, that was brought by the JVP, and then it came to Supreme Court. There the proposal was to keep the president in another room. Cabinet will meet in this room, take decisions, send a small note to the president saying we have decided this. Supreme Court said no, you can't do all that. You can't do that because executive power is now given by the people to president. So some of the amendments that we have sought to be done, Shamir, will be expectant upon the people at the next parliamentary election. We will have to ask them for a mandate going forward beyond the 16th to ask us, to permit us to amend the constitution in the manner that we've asked.
Krishna, a question to you. Now, people do come out with a manifesto. General Mahestra Nayaka has a manifesto, Gotabaya Rajapaksa has a manifesto, Sajid Premadasa has a manifesto. Legally, are we voting for the manifesto or are we voting for the person?
The sharp journalist as usual. Shamir, you bring me to the next question that I thought you might ask me is, I don't know whether you can show this. Now, this is a map that I got just yesterday, showing the first time voters in Sri Lanka, right? This shows this dark red or maroon color, not affiliated to any political party, is more than 100,000 in that district, and everywhere else that is...
If you can hold it correctly, that's right.
Yeah?
That's better.
Yeah. This is first time voters, more than 100,000 in Colombo and Gampa, these areas. Then if you look beyond that, the red shades down, and this 50,000 to 75, and it goes down to 25,000. So all these youth are going to vote for the first time, and I am appealing to you now, this first time voter, on the question that you asked me. Don't be hoodwinked by the policy document also. Because if you look at our very poor looking exercise book like policy document, and if you look at some of the others that were in glossy print and lovely...
don't judge it by the cover.
Yeah, don't judge it by the cover. Because some people actually, literally, because some people actually come and say, we had rocket scientist committees studying this for 5 years. Then some others say, we brought experts from here and there. You see now, because the politicians are sharp, I'm asking you all first time voters particularly to remember this. They have caught on to what people like Malinder and several others have been shouting for a long time, saying policy, policy, policy. You can't run elections on this hoodwinking the public. You must bring policy. So therefore, Sami, now they have prepared policy documents, very nice ones, and they have put team names into it and so many experts. But I am telling you, as Sami said, don't judge by the book by the cover, as Malinder says. Go into that document, More importantly, ask yourself the question, who's going to implement it? Because the top two phase, the so-called top two phases may have changed, but have the teams around them changed? Aren't these the same people who have been holding portfolio for the last 71 odd years over the fraction of time that have hoodwinked you over and over again with so-called policy documents? But then look at alternative groups, look at General Sennayakas and the team around him. We have former auditor generals, we have experts in engineering. I'm not saying that everyone should be experts in parliament. We have several experts in several areas that have contributed to this. And we have also the support of the grassroots who have filtered into it. Because we went around, we interviewed through some of the grassroots level networks that are with our partner organizations, Sarvodaya, Deshodaya and all that. Some people have actually contributed to making this document. The people's problems are touched in this.
So to be fair though, that claim will be made by every single campaign team.
Of course.
But deliverability, some people have failed.
Of course. But what I'm trying to say is, although the promise may be made, what you need to evaluate is, these promises have continuously been made by politicians to you. Do you want to trust that again? Now we are making a similar assurance to you. Why are you not considering what we are offering you? Because we are not professional politicians. That's the only simple choice. And I'm appealing for particularly to those first time voters that I just showed. Think carefully, because this is your maiden vote. This is your first vote. With this, you may be able to usher in a change in this country for the future yet unborn generations.
A quick note on the 19th
Very quickly,
amendment.
Malind, yes.
Yeah. Because the 19th amendment, the Supreme Court sent it back to Parliament. And what was
20th?
The 19th. The 19th, when the first draft,
Okay.
there were a lot of issues that they had, and they amended it and didn't go back to the Supreme Court. There were issues there, like how the national government is defined. That is not defined.
Yeah,
and
the
therefore,
interpretation.
when you talk about the number of ministers, that depends on whether it's a national government or not. So there are issues that need to
No,
be
but
talked about.
it's clear, no, Malind, it says...
Less than 30, so you
less
are
than
within
30, and no, also in the event of a national government you can increase it. But what my argument is, number one, why should you increase it? Because if there's national government, only to give more portfolios, no?
Yes.
Where the country's problems don't increase just because there's national government. If you're going to allocate X number of ministers to solve this country's Y number of problems, just because you have a national government, the Y number of problems don't increase. So why should you have more ministers? Only to give them more perks.
So I want to quickly switch to John, and then we'll wrap.
Yes, well, I want to shift our focus a bit here. I want to quickly put forward my question. We are living in 2019. We are living in the 21st century, and well, factors such as race, nationality, religion, ethnicity, those should be factors that unite a country, and in no way factors that would cause division. But it's utterly disgusting how certain political factions or political representatives still try to insist fear, racism or differences between ethnicities in order to fulfill their own selfish political agendas. I want you to give out a message to the public, and especially a message to the minority on to how to filter when you're voting for the presidential election. Krishmal, Malind, please.
Right. Okay. It's a two-way street. People play the race, religion card on both sides.
Right.
Some people say, okay, we have this many votes. What are you going to give me? That is also done. It is not like the majority are here and so people are pandering to the majority, because all these votes count. Every single vote counts, right? And therefore, when you have a block vote, when you associate a vote block with a community, you will address it. And that is where there is bargaining done. That is why the TNA came up with a certain set of conditions, which is why some people rejected it and some people said nothing about it, or said, I'm not going to be held to any conditions, right? But still.
But the TNA went on record saying that those conditions were not accepted by any political party.
Yeah, but then they also said that we feel that this candidate will
be more
sensitive to our issues, something like that. But so it is not the baby of one particular political party. It's not the baby of one particular community. We, as members of, as people with multiple identities, right? I'm a father, I'm a man, I'm this, that, and the other, Buddhist, Sinhala. We have to understand how now. Since I'm a father, I understand how another father feels, right? But if I can't feel what another, then there's an issue. If I am a majority, then I won't understand a minority, but then I have to agree to listen to that minority, because that epistemic privilege is his or hers, not mine, right? So where there is space for discussion, debate and all that, which we talk about, we've been talking about all this stuff for donkey's years. But in reality, if there is no space in the political system for proper discussion on all these issues, then you will have everyone playing that game. Don't blame one or the other. Everyone has played that game. The communal card, the religion card has been played by all communities, all religions.
May I also answer that question? That's a valid question. And I would thank you, John, for raising that question. And I'd like to tell your viewer, insofar as General Mahesh Senanayaka's campaign is concerned, although demographically, there may be minorities and majorities in the country demographically. As far as nationality is concerned, we do not consider anyone a minority or a majority. Mahesh has clearly espoused the principle of one rule, one nation for everyone. And within that system of sovereign one rule, one nation, we will not consider anyone as a minority or a majority to give them preference with regard to issues. However, that is not to say that demographically, I said no. Yeah. There are certain areas in this country that minorities have specific issues. Similarly, even a majority community in some other area may be equally facing the same issue. So our approach is issue-based. Our approach is not nationality-based or minority-based. Within one law, one country, one nation of Mahesh's philosophy, which is what we are running. We are saying one law. We are completely against different applications of different laws for different communities. We want one country, one law, and within that sovereign nature, we want to build up an identity of a Sri Lankan Sinhalese, a Sri Lankan Tamil, a Sri Lankan Buddhist, a Sri Lankan Muslim, a Sri Lankan Burgher, Sri Lankan. Operative word being Sri Lankan. Jatikatva. We are not a negative nationalist in any sense.
Equal citizens before the law.
Equal citizens before the law, and we want to impose it fully. And to that extent, I would encourage all of you to make that mental shift, to think beyond what we have been, what John's question is based on that, what you all have been dished out every election. Think beyond it and let's make a new country.
Thank you very much, the two gentlemen, for your thoughts in the first, second, third and fourth rounds. We now go in for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back.
වර්ෂ 2005 අහින්ද චින්තනයක් සුබ අනාගතයක්
ඡන්දය විතරක් බලාගෙන කරොත් කවදාක්වත් රටක් සංවර්ධනය කරන්න බෑ. කළ යුතු කාර්ය අපි ඉටු කරන්න ඕන. කොළඹට යන්න තමුන්නාන්සේලාට පැය කීයක් යනවද? පැය 4ක් යනවා. නමුත් තා ටික දවසකින් ඔබතුමාලට පැයයි විනාඩි 15ක් කොළඹට යන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා.
වර්ෂ 2020 ජනපති කවුද?
කවුරු හරි තමන්ගේ ඡන්ද පත්‍රිකාව ලකුණු කරලා ඒකේ ඡායාරූපයක් අරගෙන Facebook එකේ දාන එක අපි ඒ වගේම සහතික කිරීමේ නිලධාරීන්ගෙන් ඉල්ලා හිටියා. ඒක වළක්වන්න කියලා. යම් තැනක දාලා තිබුණොත් එම නිලධාරියාට සම්බන්ධ වෙනුත් අපිට ක්‍රියා කරන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. තත්ත්වය ওই විදියට ගියොත් ඡන්ද පොලේදී බැලට් පේපර් එකක් පෙන්නයි. එතෙන්දිත් පින්තූර ගහයි. ඒක මොකක්ද වෙන්නේ එතකොට? ඊට වඩා හොඳයි ගෙවල් වලට ඡන්ද පත්‍රිකා දීලා ලකුණු කරන එක. මේ කාර්යය සම්පූර්ණ නීති විරෝධී නවත්තන්න අපි දැම්මේ කවුද කියලා ට්‍රැක් කරලා අපිට හොයාගන්න පුළුවන් වුණොත් අඩුම ගානේ අවුරුදු 3කට හිරේ යනවා.
Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We're in conversation with Malinda Senaviratne and Krishma Varasurya. Let's start off the final round with Malinda Senaviratne. Malinda, there are voters who are watching you today, talking about Sri Lanka's future politically. What is the message you have for them?
I'm saying that I want the voter to be victorious, and you should be deserving of that victory. And you cannot be deserving of that victory if you are not a responsible voter, if you are not a responsible citizen. As Krishma said, be the change you want to be, and this been quoted on and off again and again for years and years. But where do we, if we can become a voice where we have been silent, if we can take a step where we have just chosen to stand aside, if we have stood up for those who we need to support, then we are a nation, we are a people who can be deserving of a people's victory, regardless of how we want to define it. If we can hold our leaders accountable to their promises they've made, then we are a deserving nation. I think that we are a country that deserves victory. We are a people that deserves victory. And that I think that begins with us, and that we can do it.
Thank you very much, Malinda Senaviratne. We do deserve victory. That's very, very important. I now move my attention to Krishma Varasurya, Counsel for General Maheshwara Nayaka, contesting on the symbol of the light bulb. Krishma, what is your pitch? Why must people come in on the 16th and vote right before the light bulb?
The pitch is very simple, Shamir, and once again on behalf of Mahesh and the team, I thank your station for giving us this time. Pitch is very simple. Walk in on the 16th. You'll see Mahesh Senanayaka, the last name right at the bottom. There are no other names beyond that. And that is where, in front of the light bulb, I am inviting you to cast your valuable franchise, which is your absolute sovereign power, Article 3 of the Constitution. Why do I say that? For years now, you have been asking us everywhere we meet, on email, Facebook, Twitter, well, why don't you all give us an alternative? Why do you all complain, keep on complaining? Come and give us a feasible alternative. I believe that we have tried our best, tried our very best to give you an alternative at this election. Now, some may say you're wasting your vote by voting for the alternative, and I say no, perish the thought. Every cross that you mark in front of the light bulb and Mahesh Senanayaka on the 16th will be an encouragement to us to give us the change that we wanted to see all these years. Because you and I belong to, in this country, in my opinion, Shamir, there are only two classes now. There are no minorities, races, there are only two classes. There are the haves and the have-nots. When I say haves, I don't mean money. There are haves of political power and have-nots of political power. We need to belong to one or the other. So if you want to continue to belong to that group where you know someone who knows the minister with whom I can get something done, you know my tender passed or then please do that. I have nothing to say to you. To you, I have nothing to say. But if you are the citizen like me who doesn't want to pay lip service to anyone, who wants to live on your own merit, what you've accumulated in life, if you educated yourself, you want to be recognized for who you are because of what you have, not because of whom you know, then I encourage you to come and dream this dream with us. This is only a start, and it's based on your response that we will be encouraged to proceed further to usher in the change that we want to see, hopefully for our children's generation. And I encourage you to consider Mahesh Senanayaka and the light bulb and encourage us to give us that change that we want to see.
Thank you very much, Krishma Varasurya, Counsel for General Mahesh Senanayaka, contesting under the symbol of the light bulb, for joining us this evening on the show. Thank you very much, Malinda Senaviratne, senior journalist, for joining us on the show as well. Thank you very much, Deshan. Thank you very much, John, for joining us tonight on the show. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. A people that elect corrupt politicians, imposters, thieves and traitors are not the victims, but us. Some food for thought. Join us tomorrow, same time, same place. That's 10 p.m. on TV1 tomorrow. Until then, take care and good night.